Hi, my name is Patricia, and I am doing this presentation for the PIDP 3300 program. And this is my third time doing it because I have too many screens and it was recording the wrong one last time. So don't mind me if I'm a little kooky for repeating the same 27-minute project over and over. First, before we start, I'd like to take a moment to recognize that we are on the ancestral and unceded homelands of the Hunkamino and Squamish speaking peoples, and to extend my appreciation for the opportunity to hold a meeting on this territory. I truly hope I didn't butcher any of those pronunciations. So, dun dun dun, the anxious brain. Um, just a gentle reminder to eliminate the background noises. But feel free to raise your hand during this. Don't wait till the end. We'll just stop. So I'm here today to explain the issue with the anxious brain. What is it? What do we know? Who does it affect? My hopes are that everyone listening can step away after this a little bit more informed about the anxious brain. A couple quotes. Be obscure, clearly. People with anxiety, like myself, tend to have a million things going on in their head. And they want to come across as simple, but it actually is like, you know, word garbage. I've often been asked to answer in 12 words or less because I'll just do one big run-on sentence. So, and I love deadlines. I like the whooshing sound they make as they fly by. Um, I've always said that if you want your house cleaned, your garden in order, I don't know, your clothes pressed or whatever it is that you need to do, enroll in school or have a school deadline because productive procrastination is a thing, and I think it's closely associated with anxiety. And there cannot be a crisis next week. My schedule is already full. Sometimes I think people with anxiety tend to make things harder on themselves. We're going to talk about it, but the worrying about the future and things that haven't happened yet. We've already got things on our plate that haven't happened. So uh, don't schedule me in for next week because I've already got that full. My ultimate favorite one that deserved its own screen was I've had a lot of worries in my life, most of which have never happened, by Mark Twain. And this just speaks to the fact that most of the worries or concerns or things that are taking up our brain have only happened in our brain. They, we're dealing with things before they come to fruition. It's it's being proactive, but it's not a healthy proactive. So, what is this anxiety we speak of? There are various types of anxiety disorders. Generalized anxiety disorder involves the persistent excessive worry about various events and activities. Panic disorder is characterized by sudden episodes of intense fear or panic. Social anxiety disorder involves fear of social situations and scrutiny. And then specific phobias. They involve intense fear of specific objects or situations. I think the most common is probably arachnophobia. As you can see there, the intense fear of spiders. Other anxiety disorders include agoraphobia, separation anxiety disorder. Perhaps if you have a dog or, an animal of some sort that could definitely display that. As well as people, and selective mutism. Now I couldn't understand when I was first doing this what selective mutism meant. And after looking into it, if I were to rename it, it would be called selective environment. Much more clear, in my opinion. It's just basically where you speak fine around family or friends, like situations where you're comfortable. But then if you go out or school or a different social group, you absolutely clam up and you're 180. You're a completely different person. So it can be normal to experience episodes of anxiety at points in your life, and you don't necessarily have an anxiety disorder. Feeling anxious is part of the as a normal part of life. Many people worry about things such as health, money, school, work, or family, but anxiety disorders usually involve more than the occasional worry or fear. For people with these disorders, anxiety does not go away. It's felt in many situations, and it definitely gets worse over time. Generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD, develops gradually and usually starts in early adulthood, although it can occur at any age. Women are more likely than men to experience GAD, with some women experiencing it during the pregnancy or postpartum period. I know for me, postpartum, I was diagnosed with postpartum anxiety, but I had already previously been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. So I was shocked to learn that they were different. It was actually it sounded, I already have GAD. What do you mean? No, this is postpartum anxiety. It's like, oh, I got GAD with a twist of postpartum anxiety. Nice. Okay. So I just want to start with some stats and facts. In 2022, studies found that the prevalence of generalized anxiety disorder had actually doubled since 2012. The study found that the proportion of Canadians aged 15 or older with generalized anxiety disorder went from 2.6 to 5.2% in those 10 years. The largest of that 10-year increase was seen among young people, particularly women aged 15 to 24 years, for whom the prevalence of generalized anxiety disorder had actually tripled in that age category. Although some of these upward trends in the prevalence of specific mental health conditions may have been related to increased stress during COVID-19, the overall worsening of mental health among young people was observed well before 2020, so it definitely was not all pandemic related. More stats. By age 40, about half of Canada's population will have had a mental illness or have a mental illness in their lifetime. Half. And 13.3% of people in Canada will experience generalized anxiety disorder in their lifetime. So, who are the most affected? Consistent with previous surveys, Canadians between 18 to 39 reported the highest levels of anxiety. 33.5% of that age group actually reported GAD. I know for me, I was 16, 17, 18, 17, 18. All of a sudden I started to fuzz out visually on a SkyTrain once, had no idea what was going on. I had to get off. It was actually Royal Oak Station. I had to get off and sit on one of those metal seats that are attached to the partition walls that are perforated with holes in it. And I had to get off. It was not my stop. I had to get off. I had no idea what was going on with me. Um, it took years to look back and realize, oh, that was anxiety. I had no idea how to get off. I just knew I had to get off. Sat and breathed and came back to life, got back on. So sometimes it's hard to know if you're in the level, like in that category of anxiety or not, just because you don't necessarily know until later that it's actually anxiety that you are experiencing. So, what can cause this anxiety that we speak of? Why? 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 Well, the causes of anxiety disorders are currently unknown, but likely involve a combination of factors which include genetic, environmental, psychological, and developmental. Anxiety disorders can run in families, suggesting that a combination of genes and environmental stresses can produce the disorders. Um, I had a little bit of a tough growing up. But I also was born to a mom who was paranoid schizophrenic with a twist of OCD, um, and GAD. So it took me a long time to realize that I definitely got, the doctor said I got a gene from her. So it wasn't just the upbringing to blame. I think there was definitely a 50-50 component there going on. I mean, this whole thing speaks to versus nurture. The course book Facilitating Learning with the Adult Brain in Mind talks about fighting a saber-toothed tiger. If someone had to do that a lot growing up, of course they would be a lot more anxious as they got older. So that is the environmental portion. It's you know, the genetic portion is just something that you inherit, but it's also very much so the environment and what your developing brain is being trained to react like. I mean, children that experience teasing, bullying, rejection, humiliation, and in all of that are much more prone to social anxiety um, than a child that has not experienced that. So, further to the nature versus nurture concept that I had just mentioned, I just want to make sure we understood what I meant by that. Nature is what we think of as the pre-wiring. It's influenced by genetics and other biological factors. And nurture is generally taken as the influence of external factors that happen after conception, so after the genetic component. There's evidence showing that a fetus starts taking in its environments from the womb, so mother's wellness and health is very important from the start. I was told that actually by some therapists and my midwife, that a mother's surroundings and mental health well-being is actually affecting the fetus right from the get-go. So, anxiety is a complex trait influenced by both genetic predisposition, which is that nature I was talking about, and environmental factors, which is the nurture. Research suggests that they both play a significant role. I mean, while genetics can make some individuals more susceptible to anxiety, environmental factors, including life experiences and social influences, are also crucial in shaping anxiety levels and the development of these disorders. If we look at the graph, we can see a correlation of different siblings. So monozygotic twins are identical twins that share the same ovum, so identical DNA or genetics, and biological siblings, and then adoptive siblings. So siblings that are adopted into the same environment but do not share any DNA. Across 3 traits that were monitored, they found that the genetic twins, the monozygotic twins, actually experienced more of the same traits than the adoptive siblings. So that to me really speaks about the genetic, like how strong the genetic component is. That you can't just raise a person differently in a different environment and expect to have the same outcome as somebody that is not genetically related. So, how does anxiety interfere with everyday life? Well, people with GAD, they may worry excessively about everyday things, have trouble controlling their worries or feelings of nervousness. They may feel irritable or on edge frequently. They may feel restless and have trouble relaxing. They may have a hard time concentrating, have trouble falling asleep or staying asleep, and they may feel fatigued, experience pain such as headaches, muscle aches, stomach aches, or tension. They may tremble or twitch, sweat a lot, feel lightheaded, out of breath, have a hard time swallowing, or even make frequent trips to the washroom. So, children and teens that have GAD do worry about most of the same things that adults do, but it's just tweaked a little. So their concerns would center around school, extracurricular activities, friendships, future. They may struggle with uncertainty, fear of making mistakes, and worry about disappointing others. So even though they don't have the bills and I don't know, the bills, the job pressure, and some of the stuff that adults do, they still worry at their own level that's relevant to them. Some children may actually strive for perfection as a way to manage their anxiety. I know that it's an attempt to control your anxiety to manage perfection, because if you're perfect and you toe the line and you follow the rules exactly, then nothing can go wrong, right? So people with anxiety can tend to be a bit paranoid of failure. And it's in an attempt to save them from the panic that anxiety makes them feel. In the scope of learning, anxiety can be an educational barrier um, that prevents their academic success. Anxiety disorders make it hard for students to get schoolwork done, makes them hard to study. They can't focus, can't sit still. It can affect their relationships with their peers, it can affect their relationships with their teachers. In some cases, students with anxiety disorders miss a lot of school. I mean, they may avoid school altogether and not attend. So, what's going on with the body when a person experiences anxiety? Well, your amygdala is a small part of your brain, but it has a really big job. It's the little almond-shaped structure there. Yeah, it's yellow. It's that tiny little one. Um, it's part of a larger network in your brain called the limbic system. It's small, but it's a major processing center for emotions. When it comes to your survival, your amygdala and limbic system are extremely important. They're parts of your brain that automatically detect danger. They also play a role in behavior, emotional control, and learning. When your amygdala doesn't work as it should, it can cause or contribute disruptive feelings and symptoms. So fear is the main emotion that the amygdala is known to control. That is why your amygdala is so important for survival, because it processes things you see or hear and uses that input to learn what's dangerous. If you encounter something similar in your future, your amygdala will cause you to feel fear of similar situations. So if you if you hear a certain noise or you feel something that has caused threat before, instead of having to turn to see what that thing is, your brain automatically goes, "Oh no, I remember that," and you're hopefully out of that situation pronto. So, one particularly valuable ability your amygdala has is to skip processing steps related to your senses. That's what I was just touching base on. It's, for example, if you hear a dangerous sound, your amygdala immediately sends emergency signals to make you react before the other areas of your brain process what is happening. So, if you hear a sudden loud sound, it can make you startle. It can make your reflexes go a little bit nuts, makes you jump or flinch because it remembers the last time that crash or bang or whatever. It was a car accident. It was a bunch of dishes crashing all over the floor and bad. I mean, unless you're Greek, I guess, but um, it's relating to the past trauma that made a similar sound. So this effect is super helpful in dangerous situations. Um, and it activates your fight or flight response so that you can protect yourself, just, you know, like saber-toothed tiger. But it can also contribute to mental health conditions like PTSD, especially when it mistakenly interprets things happening around you for danger. I did date somebody that was from Tehran and spent his early formative years in the war there. And we couldn't go out to fireworks when we dated. The pop, the bang, or whatever sound that the fireworks made triggered something in him, and he did not enjoy that the time. So, it's something like it's something in that sense. So, how do you calm down your amygdala? Some things that you can do to help counter the effects of anxiety, fear, and panic include not neglecting your mental health, learning how to deal with panic attacks, breathing exercises, grounding techniques, finding ways to manage stress and anxiety. I mean, mental health therapy, hobbies, meditation, physical activity. These are all kind of methods to deal with anxiety and fear. You really just have to figure out what works for you. You can also reach and maintain a weight that's healthy for you and eating a balanced diet. Vitamin and mineral deficiencies actually have a major effect on your brain, so I wouldn't overlook that. What can we do to help others with anxiety? So, if you're one of the lucky ones that is not experiencing this disorder, how can we make it a little bit easier for them? Because we've just learned that it is not their fault. You can take what you've learned today and understand that it's something out of their control. You can be kind, compassionate, and patient. As a teacher, you can implement anxiety-friendly teaching strategies like not cold calling on individuals and providing lesson plans ahead of time so that certain individuals may use that chance to review them and know what they're walking into. As a teacher, you can also watch for red flags when individuals suddenly drop grades or become withdrawn or absent from class. This is, not normal. Something's going on. And a teacher can also learn to recognize failure avoiders and the stress that the individual puts upon themselves due to anxiety. Um, I was only about 9 or 10, and I took a bumper sticker that I had found somewhere and put it up on my mirror in my bedroom, and it said paranoid of failure. So resonated with me so much. I don't know why, as a 9-year-old, that resonated with me, and I don't know why any adults didn't notice why it did not alarm any adults why I had this on my mirror at 9. But it's just people with anxiety. They're worried of letting down people, not achieving. what they've set out to achieve or their minds made up that they're going to achieve. I do think that it is important to notice or sorry, note um indigenous ways of managing anxiety. A lot of the time in the PIDP courses, we've talked about incorporating other views other than Western. And it's the two-eyed seeing approach is an indigenous concept from the East Coast, from the Micmac elder Albert Marshall. Basically, the idea is that you take your Western approaches and your Western concepts in one side of your eye, and then you take the indigenous ways of knowing and indigenous concepts in your other eye, and equally, um, they're equivalent. So equally, it's two-eyed seeing. So can we look at a situation with a little bit of both knowledge? Almost all research in developmental and educational psychology has previously been done from the Western perspective. Um, for instance, in Western ways of knowing, it's all about personal resiliency. Um, for instance, how tough are you against anxiety or mental health? How can you be strong? Whereas indigenous concepts, resiliency would actually include your community, your family, and your culture. And I get that because when it's all on you, when you can't tackle your mental health, when you can't beat it, and you can't, I won, then all of a sudden it makes you feel like there's something wrong with you, like you're not strong enough or smart enough or whatnot. Um, so I really like that idea of coming together as a community. But then we as a community also have to, support these people. Indigenous mental health coping strategies also involve strengthening community connections with the land, medicine walks with knowledge keepers. Um, there's Dr. Joanna Sam from UBC. She did the study and she was saying that connection to the land isn't even looked at in mental health and well-being from the Western ways of knowing. Um, but indigenous ways of knowing your connection and relationship to the land is so important. I mean, how many times do you see on social media about people saying, "Oh, get out," and all your worries will go away and have a bad day and just be one of the trees. And now there's these forest bathing walks that you can, go on in like the endowment land, Pacific Spirit Park or whatever it is, at UBC there. So I think we're coming around. But I think there's definitely some work to do yet. Um, so I hope you've walked away a little bit more understanding about anxiety, how it's not the person's fault, how we can do to, what we can do to kind of, ameliorate the situation a little bit, and the different ways that if you're experiencing anxiety, you can try to help yourself, or if you're not, that you can try to help others. So thank you very much. This concludes my presentation, and I hope I'm not doing this again. Thank you.